Hello, everybody. Welcome to HopTopics. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Kevin.
And we're here to talk about movies.
And beer.
And beer.
And beer.
And today's movie that we're talking about is not a pandemic special, but
it is the Snyder cut of the Justice League.
Justice League.
A movie that has already come out once.
Yes.
And now it has come out again.
Yeah. So, like we used to, we'll give you a synopsis of the movie, what we think about the movie. We'll talk about the beer, and then we'll do a spoiler warning.
Yeah. Let's just kind of get this out of the way. We're going to do a semi-spoiler warning for the Whedon cut of the movie, the original theatrical cut of the movie, before we get into the Snyder cut. Because these are two almost entirely different movies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'll just get that out of the way right now. These are so different.
Mm-hmm.
Both in, like, the way the story's told, a lot of key components of the story, the tone,
the lighting.
Just so much of this movie is so much different.
Music
is massively different.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Zack Snyder went back and got his original music composer that he used for all of his other movies, and didn't use Danny Elfman, who did the original scores for the old '90s Batman movies. Yeah. So that's honestly, like, after we watched the theatrical cut before we watched the Snyder cut. So we endured 6 hours of Justice League for you. Not that it was a burden. We love you.
The 2 hours was.
The 2 hours was a bit of a burden.
Yes.
And the 4 hours definitely tested us.
Yes.
But, we got through it, and we're better men for it, and we're going to tell you all that we think about it. We're also going to tell you about this beer. Lagunitas sucks. It's a dry hopped IPA from Lagunitas, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Dude, the Whedon cut of the movie, if you haven't seen it, spoiler warning, sucked.
Yeah. It was 2 hours of garbage.
It was 2 hours long. There was little to no character development. They tried to make it a lot more joke-centric, a la the Marvel movies, which Joss Whedon worked on the original 2 Avengers movies, so, like, it was more tonally shifted towards being like that, which, like, I'll be the first to say, out of the two of us, because I'm taking priority here and speaking, that, Zack Snyder set up a certain ambiance for his DC movies, and while you may not agree with, the dark, gritty tone, when you go from dark and gritty for 2 massive movies, and then go to a kind of dark and gritty, but mostly lighthearted and certainly goofy-looking, ensemble movie, it's really jarring, and it really takes you out of what everything that has been set up kind of had you do. And that was probably the first big thing that I noticed about the Snyder cut. It would have been the first probably 5 minutes, but it ended up being like 10 minutes. At the beginning of the movie. With all the credits and setup and everything. Oh man, it was intense. But, like, cinematically speaking, a lot more beautiful and, like, grand. Like, there was definitely a vision that Zack Snyder had with this movie, and the Whedon version definitely undercut a significant chunk of that. And
probably killed any future like movies or film possibilities.
We see that throughout the Snyder cut. Is like, it is totally, like, it's taking basically the first couple of years of Marvel movies and condensing it into one big 4-hour movie setting up the continuing universe of the Justice League and all these individual heroes and villains and stuff. They do set up parts for Batman to return in a solo movie. They set up parts for the Flash to return in a solo movie, Cyborg to return in a solo movie.
Aquaman to have another one.
Aquaman's first movie, because this is supposed to come out before Aquaman actually came out. So this actually much better and much more cohesively set up Aquaman.
It answered so many more questions from like Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there were so many massively contrasting differences that if you saw when did that movie come out? 2017?
I think so, yeah.
The Joss Whedon version of Justice League 2017. Because, Zack Snyder dropped out of the movie in 2016.
16,
yeah. The movie that came out in 2017 is like a far cry different from what we're getting now. And, you know, it's honestly, it's so much better.
The only downside I saw from this entire movie is that it's 4 hours.
It's 4 hours long.
But I mean,
if you're not totally invested, it's gonna feel like 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
If you're like super invested, if like DC's like your main jam, you're gonna love this. I mean, absolutely adore this movie. I have heard some raving reviews for this movie. And I've heard some, very, very negative reviews for this movie.
I didn't believe any of the raving ones. I was like, I gotta see
it. Yeah.
after watching the Joss Whedon one, I was like, no.
Well, since we watched it, like, the day that it came out, the Snyder Cut, the only person I had listened to that said that they saw it was Kevin Smith. And if Kevin Smith likes something, he's gonna freaking gush over it.
Yeah, that's true.
He enjoyed the Snyder Cut, and he gushed over it, and he got me a little excited for it. I'm not gonna lie. I had a little bit more expectation going in this movie. And as far as the little bit of expectation goes, this movie really did kind of fulfill on that. Like,
oh yeah.
It kept me engaged. Even though it's 4 hours long, it kept me engaged throughout pretty much nearly the entirety of the movie. There were some parts that I definitely kind of information overload. Like, there's so much going on. But they did pace it in a way that I feel like worked very well for what it was doing. And the reason it's 4 hours is because they go into so much more character development for every single member of the Justice League.
Yep.
Except for Wonder Woman, who already had her own movie before this.
You should have already known what Wonder Woman's about by this point.
And they make some quips about it, and some pretty significant plot points, pointed towards that first movie for the first Wonder Woman movie. I don't know. As far as an undertaking and all the reshoots that they would have had to do, the changes that they made, and how much they tonally changed the movie, made it significantly better than the Whedon cut.
Well, when they changed everything back to what Zack Snyder originally envisioned, it became 100 times better.
Yeah. So Wednesday, we watched the original cut of the Justice League. And neither of us had actually watched the whole movie all the way through.
I'd say maybe 60% of the movie.
Yeah, I had seen maybe 30 to 40%. I hadn't really seen a whole lot of the movie. The parts that I had seen, I was like, wow, I'm really glad I didn't spend money to see this.
Exactly, same.
Most of it was the big CGI fight scene at the end with Steppenwolf and all that.
He looked terrible in that movie.
Oh my god.
He looked so bad.
His design was just so lackluster and boring.
Plus the CGI
looked really, really CGI.
The CGI was just so bad too.
It was
the lighting was completely off on him, and he looked fake.
Yeah. But yeah, so we watched that first take of the movie, and I don't think 10 minutes went by that one of us didn't look at each other and make a comment. There were several points, and a lot of this was probably due to Danny Elfman's music. But I'm just all like, dude, did Joss Whedon direct this, or did Joel Schumacher direct this?
Right.
Who directed Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Yep.
And those movies were not that great. Batman and Robin was absolutely terrible, and Batman Forever is, like, very niche in its enjoyment. You gotta really like that over-the-top, campy, like children's-style comic book movie. Far cry from the Tim Burton Batman movies, which were so much better.
So much better.
But, yeah, watching the 2-hour Whedon movie felt almost as long as, if not longer than, the Snyder Cut, just because it didn't go anywhere. It wasn't very cohesive. Engaging.
It wasn't engaging. It was very cohesive. It seemed like a jumbling of a whole bunch of parts that they just kind of threw together, and this is a movie.
And there's so many glaring CGI mistakes, and there was one scene, and I keep referring to this, where Batman gets kind of thrown off, and it looks like he lands on really poorly laid AstroTurf with a green screen behind him, and you can tell it's so bad.
It's really bad.
There are so many scenes where it's just the background is just seems so out of place, and the characters are entirely too joking. There's just so much that's just bad about that version of the movie, and I completely understand why that movie basically crashed the DCEU into the ground.
It has I think it still has a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes by the critics, and rightly so.
Yeah.
It is awful.
I could see myself giving it a 38%. I'd probably even give it lower, because when a movie's bad, I tend to be way more critical of it.
Yeah, same.
And just say, oh, that movie was garbage, never watch it. And that's kind of how I feel about the Whedon
cut. Yeah.
It's just bad. And that's going into it with all of the high expectations that I had, because Joss Whedon did The Avengers. The Avengers was amazing. It was one of the biggest ensemble movies of all time. It probably still is. The first Avengers movie is probably still until
I think it's still in the top
Infinity
5
War and Endgame. Literally, they just had to make more Avengers movies to top the Avengers, because it's the only way you could get better than the first Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Which they did spectacularly with the Russo brothers doing Infinity War and Endgame.
Oh, thank God we got the Russo brothers.
So good. And they did Winter Soldier too, which is my favorite movie out of the MCU.
Great MCU movie.
But yeah, when they brought Joss Whedon in, I'm like, oh, cool. Because I didn't like Man of Steel that much. It has its moments, but it's it wasn't a Superman movie, as far as I'm concerned. I didn't like Batman v Superman at all. That was just a bad movie. That was just bad.
Bad.
Nothing about that movie I liked.
They tried to cram too much of comic book references.
Yeah, they tried to cram 6 different comic books into one 2-hour movie, and it just did not work at all.
Plus the whole plot device of why Batman stops fighting
Martha
was the worst.
Why did you say that name? Why'd you sound like that?
The worst. The worst.
Man.
So,
which is why, even in the Snyder Cut, I'm not going to refer to Clark's mom as Martha. I refer to her as Mama Kent.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time I looked over at him to say something during the Snyder Cut, I'm like, oh, dude, the one moment, and they keep it in the Snyder Cut, which is great. And obviously, Zack Snyder shot this scene was when, I guess spoiler alert, but if you've seen the original Justice League movie, you know what happens. And if you know anything about Superman at all, you know what's going to happen. Superman comes back, and they're at the Kent farm, and when Mama Kent drives up and sees him for the first time since he had died, was like, yeah, like, that got me. That got me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, that's so nice.
It was very nice. I did like that part. Very happy that they just kind of like expanded on it in the Snyder Cut.
Also, I feel like they did a lot better job, and they did a lot more build up with it, with Lois Lane and Clark in the Snyder Cut. I feel like they built more on that relationship through backstory and grieving than they did in the actual romantic relationships in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
Like, Snyder Cut did a way better job of formulating their relationship in that one movie that we should have had in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Oh yeah, easily.
So that made a lot more emotional impact in the Snyder Cut Justice League for me.
True. Yep. Same.
I don't feel like I can talk too much more about these movies without getting too spoilery. We haven't really talked too much about spoilers for the Snyder Cut yet. But I guess the lowdown is Snyder Cut is better shot, better lighting, better colorizing, better CGI, more cohesive story. You care more about the characters. The funny parts are actually funny.
It's just better.
It's just better. It's all around better.
Yeah.
I won't get into why so much yet, but because I'm having a hard time not doing that. But yeah, just if you haven't seen it, take our word for it now. Watch it, then come back, and we'll spiel about it.
Yep.
What's a beer?
Do you want to rate the movie first?
Oh yeah, let's. Before we talk about the beer,
yes. What would you rate this?
What would I rate? What?
The Snyder Cut.
The Snyder Cut?
We already said what we think about the Justice.
You know what? I will be completely honest and say that I don't know exactly what I would rate the Snyder Cut. I feel like I'd have to watch it again to like completely appreciate it, because it's a lot more like cinematography driven.
Oh yeah,
like that's what really like grinds the runtime. It's like they go a lot more in depth with the characters and their storylines and everything, but there's like when you watch the Whedon cut, there's a scene right at the beginning of Batman coming up on a horse to a cliff edge in like the Arctic. It's in Norway, and looking over a small town, and you're given no reason why he's there, and no reason why he took a horse over a obviously completely dangerous mountain range. Beautiful shot. It's an overhead shot coming up and looking down on this like small town, and it's a gorgeous shot, but it has no context. And in the Snyder Cut, it not only expands on that by showing you long drawn shots of, you know, like icebergs and Arctic conditions, and like, you know, like, oh, this is definitely like Batman had to have Affleck made like an incredible journey to get to this town, but you don't know why in the original cut. In the Snyder Cut, they actually give you a full explanation as to, oh, the oceans and like the harbor is completely frozen over. A ship can't get in. You can't fly in because of the weather conditions.
They said that in the Whedon cut, but it was very quick and it was not like, nearly as.
I don't even remember it being said in the Whedon cut.
It was super quick, and they kind of glanced over that.
Yeah,
they expanded more on that in the Snyder cut too, which I thought was nice.
No man could have gone over that, and like he would have surely died. And then there's Ben Affleck Batman. You know.
Yeah.
Like, he's Batman. Of course of course he can get over that.
Yeah, he's going to take the most extreme level because Batman.
He's Batman. He does everything to the extreme.
But you can't.
But like that,
1 to 5, can't rate it.
You know what? The Snyder Cut, I would give a solid 4.
I give that. Yeah, I'll be right there with you.
I'd give it a solid 4, and it could go higher. It could go slightly lower. I don't see it going any lower because I've already endured it.
Yeah.
Like, I already watched the 4-hour movie, and just the vastness that it improved on the original is worthy of a full, like, 1.5 uptick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I were to rate the Whedon cut, it'd be like a 2.
Same.
Like, if that.
So
1.5 to 2.
So we're pretty much doing the same route as Rotten Tomatoes, which they basically doubled the score.
Yeah, it's more or less double. It's twice as good as the Whedon cut.
Yeah, not because of the double the runtime.
Not because of the double the runtime, but because it is twice as good a movie.
Exactly, because
easily.
Easily. So yeah,
if I watched it again, and if I were more of a DC fan, I'd probably rate this much higher.
Mm-hmm.
But as it stands, one viewing all the way through directly after watching the theatrical cut, I would give this an easy 4.
Easily. Okay, now you can talk about the beer.
What's the beer? We got Lagunitas Sucks. And we got that because we watched the theatrical cut of Justice League first, before we watched the Snyder cut. And, you know, we had our apprehensions, so we went for something that, you know, possibly sucks. It literally says sucks on the freaking box. But it's a dry hopped IPA, Lagunitas out of Petaluma, California. You know, if you know beer, you know Lagunitas. It's a classic IPA, very easy drinking. You know, 6.5%. Like, there were times when I was drinking that I would just drink a 6-pack of Lagunitas and still be fine. Like, it was just my go-to, just day drinking. I could drink these all damn day. I loved the original Lagunitas. This one is basically Lagunitas, but dry hopped and amped up.
Mm-hmm.
It's still very drinkable, but it adds a lot more of like a piney hop flavor to it.
Yep.
It's also 8%, which far cry from 6.5.
I'm very happy about
so
that.
This will actually get you places if you're like us.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I was reading the they always print something around the edge, and I thought it was actually rather poignant, considering the year that we just had.
Mm-hmm.
But word for word, experiencing severe year-end WTF-ness. Because I can't really...
Yes.
Yeah, YouTube. Allow us to recommend this simple palate cleanser on a journey to a wiser 2021. Hop forward and bright, with forward-looking hope that next year will be brighter than the last. It can only be, right? Life is uncertain. Don't sip. And to that...
Towards the wise. There it is. This is definitely more towards the types of beers that we go after.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, this is
for a dry hopped IPA, it's fairly malty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I definitely get some good malt character, which makes it a very well balanced beer.
Mm-hmm. Because you don't get like the overpowering of like the bitterness, but you get you get a very nice balance throughout the entire beer, and it is so nice.
It's a really nice beer. If you like something hoppy but a little bit on the darker roasty malty side, this is a great beer. And it's Lagunitas. It sits right in there at that nice low price point.
Mm-hmm.
I think
I think it was only $7.
$7.50.
Yeah, I think it was like I think they priced it like $6.99.
Yeah,
So,
Southern California, $7.49 6. I mean, dude, how can you go wrong?
Serious.
Obviously, if you're more into doing the independent breweries, Lagunitas is no longer an independent brewery. It was bought out for a fairly hefty sum of money a few years ago.
Yep.
But, you know, in spite of that, I still like their beer. They still make great beer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, while I'd rather support independent breweries, much like our local institution and many other local breweries that we have in the area, you know, this is a limited release. If you can find it, I would highly recommend buying it.
Oh, yeah.
What would you rate this beer?
Oh.
What? What?
Nothing. Next time, aim it more on the couch.
I wanted everybody to hear.
Oh, everybody's gonna hear it.
Yep. I know. That's the best part.
Dear God. You know what? I'm gonna have to give it a 4. It's a very solid beer. I really like it. It's got a high alcohol content, which I usually tend to go towards. It's got good balance, good flavor. It's got that hoppiness that we're like looking for usually. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm not gonna say it's perfect because it's not quite there yet.
Yeah, it's not.
But like, it's on its way.
Perfect beer.
It's on its way.
Like, as far as a day drinker, easy 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it damn near perfect for me. Like, it's got a high alcohol content. It's got that malty, roasty flavor. It's hoppy.
Mm-hmm.
I love beers that are dry hopped. They always tend to, like, hit that really dry sensibility. Mm-hmm. And then with that, like, roasty maltiness, it just hits so nice. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely, you know, I'm flat out 4.5. Like, this is a solid beer, great flavors, not quite perfect. You know, this is no Sierra Nevada celebration for me, but if there were a contender, this would be up there.
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah, it's like the Endeavor to All Might. To make a really random anime reference.
Which may be a thing in the future. We don't know.
Yeah, we could do anime. We just gotta devote more time to making videos and less time to doing our jobs.
Okay, well, let's not go that far.
I mean, if
we're
gonna get to that point. But anyways,
I should say when we get to that point, we'll dedicate more.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, if I have to go down to 4 days, I probably won't.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. I'm not going to. This is going to be a side gig unless it becomes prominent enough to become a main gig. In which case, I'll go down to 0 days and just do this. What's better than talking about movies and drinking beer as a job?
Gotta be there. Nothing.
Having sex and drinking beer as a job? That would be the only better job.
I mean, yeah. Whoever's got that job,
cheers.
Let us know. Please.
Let us know. Hook us up.
We'd like to
get into that industry.
We'd like to apply.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. I like it.
Well, don't put your beer down too soon because we're going to get into spoilers right after this current slurp, chug, sit thing. So, if you have seen the Snyder Cut, or if you just don't care about spoilers, stick around. If you haven't, well then, go watch it. or not. I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah,
but we recommend it. Actually, we recommend it.
Oh, highly. Yes,
definitely.
I mean, it's free on HBO Max.
Yeah, and if you watch it on HBO Max, it's free. It just costs 4 hours of your life. Which, how many times have you given up 4 hours for something that you wish you did not?
So many times.
So many times. Anyways. Hey. Don't dare. I live here
horrible,
too.
He is a horrible main character.
It's neither here nor now. Don't make me yell. There are people sleeping. Anyways, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers!
The spoilers!
The spoilers. We're going to talk about the Snyder Cut in the incredible depths.
Incredible.
Incredible. Fake German, terrible German accents aside.
Yes, sorry.
I do have to say, I mean, I already mentioned it before, but the Snyder Cut is far and away better than the Justice League that, if you saw it in theaters in 2016, like, this is a totally different movie.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
It is totally different. It is characterly different. Like, the characters are different. The story's different. The villains are different. I mean, we haven't even talked about how much better Steppenwolf's design is in the Snyder Cut. Like, it's morphing. It's like you kind of give like a smooth finish to it, but it also adapts to like when he's like angry. And like when he's like ready for battle. It like spikes
out. Yeah.
It looks so cool, and it's way flashier too.
Oh yeah.
Also, his facial expressions are actually like there.
Yeah, like he's the CGI for his character is much more defined, much more depth.
Yeah,
and like it's just 1,000 times better.
Yeah, his face actually portrays character, and the way they portray him is kind of like somebody that's fallen from grace, where it's like you could tell he was like a head honcho in Darkseid's army and then screwed up royally and is trying to like do something really grand to regain favor. And that also comes into play when he discovers that Earth has the anti-life
equation, yes,
which isn't going to come into play for this movie, but if they do decide to continue like a Zack Snyder DCEU, they could delve into a lot deeper.
Which I think they really should do. I mean, like,
honestly, at this point, like, going into the Justice League, I would have been like, nah, dude, just fucking cut your losses.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, with everything that Joss Whedon did, it was just not. Everything was just so
well, even
all
after
over the place.
Batman v Superman, I'm just all like, just stop.
Just stop.
Start over. You're like, embarrassing yourselves.
You guys have to eat.
Like, you didn't take the time. You didn't establish characters properly. Like, Marvel had 3 Iron Man movies, 2 Thor movies before they really like got into it. You know, like they had Captain America, they had the Incredible Hulk, they had Iron Man and Iron Man 2 before they got and Thor. Before they did the Avengers.
Yeah. They had like
4 different movies before they even tried to do an ensemble movie, which only 3 of those characters were actually majorly part of.
Yeah.
Not including Loki, who was the villain of that movie.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, the DCU just tried to, like, steamroll it into, hey, there's Justice League, here's the thing, we're cool too. They did a terrible job.
They should have just did the same thing with what Marvel started at the beginning, was establish some characters, and then eventually form the team like they did. It took them a long time to set up everything that was going for Avengers. Marvel bet everything on Iron Man. If Iron Man failed, they did too.
Yeah.
And they were being bought out one way or another.
But even after Iron Man was a major success, they still took it slow.
Oh, yeah.
They came out with Thor, they came out with Iron Man 2, they came out with Captain America, and the Incredible Hulk. But they didn't, like they only hinted at the Avengers in the post-credit scene of Iron Man.
Yeah.
And after that, they're just like, alright, I'm gonna back off a little bit. Let's, like, get these other characters introduced. Like, let's get our Avengers kind of in line. Let's set up a story. And then we're gonna go for it. And they went for it, and they knocked it out of the park with the Avengers movie.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back after Endgame and everything, the Avengers movie isn't quite so grand, but that takes nothing away from it. It was still a spectacular undertaking, and in every right, a great movie.
Yeah, years of patiently, like, seeing if what works, what doesn't work, and and then eventually moving forward with this, like, massive idea. And
mind you, they went through with the Avengers, even though Iron Man 2 just barely did what Iron Man 1 did. Thor wasn't super well received. Neither was Captain America. And the Incredible Hulk was almost completely glossed over.
Yeah, it pretty much was.
Like, they were literally launching the Avengers on the strength of Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
And 2. Basically. And then Iron Man 3 dug deep into the psychology of Tony Stark.
Yeah, they did a lot of things that were unnecessary.
Psychology. Is that even... It's not even a word.
It's psychology.
Psychology.
But
slapping you to sucks is hitting me a little bit harder than
what it seems like DC tried to do is like, oh, people know these characters. We'll just toss out a couple movies and like, then we can do an ensemble movie.
They're just like, hey, Superman, Batman, Justice League.
But people don't.
Justice League is a whole lot more than Superman and Batman.
Yeah,
like they're the core of it.
Yeah, I mean, like,
don't falter at all. But like establishing the Flash, establishing Wonder Woman, establishing, especially if you're going Justice League and Martian Manhunter.
Oh, seriously, yeah.
Like the fact that they went straight for Justice League without introducing Aquaman properly, without introducing Martian Manhunter at all, and barely introducing the Flash and Cyborg.
Yep.
Like, they really rushed into it.
They were trying to catch up. They were trying to catch up to Marvel, and they were banking real hard on like people knowing who their characters are. But like, you can't do that for a massive audience. No,
Marvel didn't even do that. Even when it came to Spider-Man, who had already had 2 superhero franchises leading up to it, they still did the slow lead into Spider-Man. Like, introducing Spider-Man in Civil War and then giving him his own movie after Civil War.
Yep.
Like, Marvel... We keep saying Marvel, but Kevin Feige... Kevin Feige is genius when it comes to, like, sequencing these things.
He's planned out so many things so far in advance. Like,
And I'm sure he still plays some things close to the chest. I'm sure he kind of goes off the cuff here and there, especially now that Marvel is acquired Fox. Well, he's got a whole new world to
integrate into
it and play with and explore, and they got to do it right.
Well, then since they lost Tony Stark. They have to try and find that.
They haven't lost Tony Stark, and they just don't want to spend the money on Tony Stark.
Well, the character is gone, and as of right now, Marvel doesn't want to bring any characters back from the dead. And
except for the ones that they've already brought back from the dead. Black Widow. I know it's a prequel, but they brought her back from the dead, basically. So she died, but
it's a prequel. Anyway, I digress. We're not here to talk about Marvel. We're talking about DC.
No, we are talking
about
DC.
The Snyder Cut. We got off on a massive tangent.
As we do.
Yes,
we always do.
But
wouldn't be a HopTopics video if we didn't go off on tangents.
Not only did they introduce in the Snyder Cut the Martian Manhunter.
Okay.
Who's been in this movie, who's been in this franchise since apparently Man of Steel.
So, that's what gets me, is they don't provide answers to why Martian Manhunter was pretending to be Ma Kent. They don't.
Well, they wanted to have Lois.
But Ma Kent could have done that same exact job just as easily. That's the entire motivation as to why Lois Lane goes out and is a human again. Is that Ma Kent tells her to be, because that's what Clark would have wanted.
Yeah.
And then she leaves, and it turns out to be Martian Manhunter. But then also, alright, does that mean that Ma Kent that meets Clark in the field is also Martian Manhunter, or is that just Ma Kent?
No,
it's not properly explained.
No, they did
kind of shoehorned the Martian Manhunter thing into the movie.
Yes.
And that was probably one of the most detracting things from the movie.
Yeah.
Was they kind of shoehorned him in.
Yes.
They shoehorned him into that scene, and then there's nothing throughout the entirety of the rest of the film. He doesn't show up at all. And then, boom, he meets with Bruce Wayne.
At the end, yes.
At the end. And
it explains who he is.
Also, man, it kind of reveals how, lazy they were in the long time ago with DC Comics, naming their characters, because he's just you can call it Martian Manhunter. It's he's got an actual name.
Well, I mean, he has a name when he...
he has a name that he goes by when he's not
he's human.
The Martian Manhunter.
Yeah,
but it's...
John Jones.
Yeah, but it's just oh yeah, call me Martian Manhunter, and then he flies away. It's just such a goofy fucking scene.
Well, it is very goofy, but I mean, that's pretty much how a lot of the DC comics, early DC comics were.
I know, but there's.
Especially with the Martian Manhunter. Especially with the Martian Manhunter, because he doesn't
not to continuously draw parallels to the MCU, but the MCU hasn't had any egregiously corny introductions like that. Oh, I'm Martian Manhunter, and then disappears into the limelight. It's... The MCU sets up their characters a lot more realistically.
Well, it's because they spaced everything out and they have time to do that.
I get that, but I'm just saying that the Martian Manhunter introduction and then the reveal of his actual name and character at the end is just very clunky. It's very, you could have taken. It seems like an afterthought.
Well, you could have taken those parts out of the movie, and it still would have worked fine.
Yeah, Like, Martian Manhunter didn't even need to be part of either the Whedon or Snyder cuts of these movies.
He wasn't in the Whedon one.
He wasn't in the Whedon one at all.
But I mean, like, the Snyder... He didn't necessarily be in the Snyder cut either.
Be in the Snyder cut.
No.
Like, he could have just been introduced in any other movie and it would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, introducing him in the Snyder cut was honestly a complete detraction from what they were trying to do in that movie.
Yes.
And that's probably one of my biggest complaints about it. Now that I'm thinking about it, talking about it right now, in the moment, is I'm like, oh wow, that's a real detraction from the movie. Because it even took you and I out of it when we watched it, and freaking Ma Kent turns into Martian Manhunter after talking to Lois. I'm like, why? Like, why was that a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Why at all? Like, there's no reason for Martian Manhunter to be the one influencing Lois Lane to get back out into the world. Like, it could have just been Ma Kent, and the scene would have gone by just the same.
True.
Like, it just felt like a reveal for the sake of a reveal.
That's
and that very much took me out of the movie.
Darkseid. Darkseid plays a much bigger play in this.
If you watch the original movie,
he was mentioned.
He was mentioned, but he makes zero appearance.
Mm-hmm.
He makes zero appearance, and he's mentioned once.
Yep.
When Steppenwolf, like, for Darkseid, blah blah blah. Mm. Makes Steppenwolf seem like, and that one line makes Steppenwolf seem like a total freaking pansy.
Yep.
It just kind of makes you, it kind of takes you out of the severity of the moment, wherein the Snyder cut still makes Steppenwolf seem like a force to be reckoned with, and then sets up Darkseid for being like somebody that's like Superman level strength.
Yeah.
Which, if you know the comics, Darkseid is very much Superman level strength.
He is. Yeah.
He's a beast and just does not take any shit whatsoever. In the original cut of the movie, Steppenwolf is the one who attacks Earth back when the Amazons, the Atlanteans, and the humans are all singular force, plus the old gods, like the
as well
Greek
as the one
gods,
Green Lantern
and the one Lantern Corps guy.
It's a unnamed alien.
Yeah,
from the Lantern
he's
Corps.
A monkey.
Yeah.
He's a monkey.
Yeah.
But he's Lantern Corps. He dies.
The ring flies off
pretty quickly. The ring flies off. Darkseid goes to grab it. Well, in the original cut, Steppenwolf goes to grab it, but it zips off. And the Snyder cut, Darkseid is the one attacking Earth. And it actually raises the stakes so much higher when you see it in the Snyder cut. I feel like Steppenwolf just feels like a herald. Mm-hmm. Like, oh yeah, I'm a big bad, dude, but I ain't nothing compared to my boss.
Yep.
One, they make Steppenwolf way more imposing in the Snyder cut, and two, they actually show Darkseid a lot in the Snyder cut.
It's every scene that Darkseid's in is super rewarding too.
Yeah,
he's super imposing, and it's great. Like every part that they did, the way that they did Darkseid was perfect.
Yeah, his model, his characterization in the movie is fantastic. Mm-hmm. He doesn't look campy and comic booky. He looks like he would be if he were an actual alien being. Mm-hmm. His mannerisms are very imposing, and you can tell he's powerful from the little things that you see him do.
Yep.
And, like, that actually major story change lends a huge amount to the movie itself. Is it raises the stakes. Is like Darkseid actually attacked the Earth and Darkseid was defeated, and it really shows you what the power of the combined forces of Earth between the Atlanteans, the Amazons, and men could really muster up, and that they defeated him. And I think it was Zeus was the one that really like wounded him, or
no, it was Ares. It was
Ares. Ares was the one that really wounded him. It threw me off because obviously they didn't get the same character from Wonder Woman to play Ares.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did. They just CGI modeled him a little younger.
Oh my god, they would have had to CGI model him like significantly younger.
His entire body was pretty much CGI. And they
I would not have guessed that.
And
was
they de-aged
Ares.
his face.
I would have thought that was like Hercules or Zeus or something. Like, dude, it did not look like him.
No, they de-aged his face.
I'm sorry, and I still see him as Professor Lupin from freaking Harry Potter. Like, I'm sorry. You watch the movie, you tell me.
Yeah, because I was like, I was looking for like every.
I was looking for Professor Lupin when they said Ares. When they're talking about the old gods and like how they were fighting against him, I'm like, oh, dude, Professor Lupin's right over here. And it's like,
and he was,
and he wasn't. But
he
somebody
was.
portraying him was. Somebody portraying him.
Anyway, yeah, like
so if you want to build continuity, I'm like, these are morph beings. They should look the same.
I did. I didn't
Just saying.
I didn't recognize Zeus at first. I was like, oh, that's probably Hercules, and then he shot lightning bolts.
He shot lightning, and you're just like,
oh
yeah,
that's
Zeus.
Oh shit! No wonder Hippolyta slipped with him. That's Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. Yep. But yeah, like I was like, wow, okay, well, no wonder. But yeah, like every scene that Darkseid shown, like when Steppenwolf succeeds. Mm-hmm. Like, and you see Darkseid coming through the portal.
He's like standing on the other side of the portal with his
Apocalypse.
His two main
with Desaad and Granny Goodness.
Granny Goodness. Yeah.
Oh god, I'm so sad they didn't mention Granny Goodness.
Not only did they not mention Granny Goodness, but they left her like way off to the side.
They didn't even like
barely visible.
They didn't
like
even
you
have
couldn't even tell who was playing Granny Goodness.
What I think happened was they didn't have anybody set for Granny Goodness,
and they just kind of stand-in.
Yeah, they're like, so like
you know that's very
so they can probably come back to that later if they do something, but they most likely won't. But like that was so cool, like bringing in Granny Goodness, like because she brings in Bad Barda and like the other like Furies that are there. It's so
implications of the Snyder Cut make me more excited about the DCEU than Batman v Superman ever could have.
Yes, exactly. So like yeah, they kind of put that in there, like hinting at like another like movie that they could do, like introducing the Furies and stuff like that. But which would have been awesome.
So yeah, the Snyder Cut definitely goes into how much more of the DCEU they were planning.
Mm-hmm.
It sets up future Batman movies. It sets up
Superman
Wonder
movies,
Wonder Woman. It's actually properly leads into Aquaman, because before it was just there's Justice League and Aquaman was kind of in it.
Yeah, like
Aquaman wasn't even really a character that much in the Justice League. Like he served a prominent FaceTime role, but he didn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
In the Snyder Cut, he actually does some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually a character, and it sets up the Aquaman movie properly.
Yep.
Like him actually retrieving. Well, actually, that was something that I thought the Snyder Cut could have spent a minute or two doing, was him going back and retrieving the trident and donning the armor. Was like, I felt like that would have been a great moment that the Snyder Cut could have put in there. It's already 4 freaking hours long, like, and they might as well have done that little bit, just to kind of, set up the character a little bit more. When he comes back and he's like fully armored, when 90% of the movie before that he's not even wearing a shirt, which begs the question: what does he do first thing when he goes to the service? Is like hit up an Old Navy and grab a shirt,
grab a tank top,
grab a couple of shirts, so that he can jump into the ocean and like throw the shirt off at some random location.
Yeah. Okay. So when he first does that, he first takes off the sweater, and then the girl picks it up and smells it. And I was like,
I was
like,
that was a really So it was really weird.
It was
really weird in the Whedon cut. It doesn't get much better in the Snyder Cut when they have a full song.
Oh, yeah.
Before she goes and picks up the sweater and smells it. That was really weird.
That
could have been left out of both of these movies.
Okay, yeah, the song part could have been left out, and also the smelling the shirt part.
The song kind of expands on the mythos of that, like, Aquaman's a herald of good times, like they would have a song for that.
Yeah,
like it's a small fisherman's town, like in a time when they can't fish, and then Aquaman comes and brings a bounty to them.
Oh my god, the best part in the Snyder Cut was when Batman actually speaks the language.
Oh
my god, that was great.
That was actually great.
That was so great. I was like, wait a minute, Batman probably speaks this language. Why is he only speaking English right now? I was like,
because he's being cheeky. That's why.
Because he's being Batman. That's why. He always has to get the upper hand at the last moment.
Instead of just being revealing right up front, he's always withholding until the very end.
He's always holding all of the cards.
It's a very Batman move, but it doesn't. Like, at the time, it doesn't really work in his favor, so it was like, why did you string these people along? Like, they're clearly no BS kind of people.
Yeah.
And he just goes along doing his typical Batman BS.
Yeah.
And, of course, he gets turned down. The only reason Aquaman comes back is because freaking Steppenwolf attacked him and took the mother box.
Which is pretty much the only reason Aquaman comes out of Atlantis anyway, so...
Yeah. Which, again, leads into the Aquaman movie. So much leads into the Aquaman movie in the Snyder Cut that's significantly left out in the Whedon cut of Justice League. There's so much more setup for future movies in the Snyder Cut that it almost makes me sad that most of these movies are never going to see the light of day.
Yeah, we may not.
Like,
we may not
see a lot of these. I mean, the guy who plays Cyborg is in a big controversy with WB. Ezra Miller is standing with him, so there's a good chance we're not going to see a Cyborg or Flash solo movie unless they recast.
Which would be unfortunate because Ezra Miller was one of the highlights of both movies.
Absolutely a highlight of the Justice League.
Yeah, and like his character just altogether was just wonderful.
So good. And I mean, he was the quippy comic relief character,
which the Flash usually is.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I mean, like, it was great.
So he fit his role perfectly. I have to say, the most well-developed character in the Snyder Cut, Cyborg.
Oh yeah,
by far. Oh yeah. In the original cut of Justice League, you couldn't give two craps about Cyborg.
Yeah. Oh,
you get some tragic backstory, blah blah blah, and then bam, he's Cyborg, and then he's in the team. In this,
I can talk to my dad now.
You actually see so much more, and there's so much more emotional connection to it. Mm-hmm. It's really way better.
Oh yeah,
and this is why I give the movie a solid 4. Is just it properly introduces and elaborates on characters, and the tone is much more fitting for what it's trying to do. Obviously, in the Whedon cut, it was just way more jokey, way more lighthearted. The lighting was very more alien-esque.
The lighting was also brighter. They made everything seem a little brighter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas the Snyder cuts, you get a lot more gray tones. You get a lot more.
There's a lot more blues.
Yeah, there's more grays, dark colors. There's not nearly as many vibrant colors.
Yeah, it's a big thing in the final big battle, the big CGI battle. In the original cut of the movie, everything's bright orange and red, and
there's
things
bright,
are happening,
bright purple,
left, right, and all that sort of thing. In the Snyder cut, they tone all that down to
there's
much more darker.
There's more reds, oranges, darks.
Well, there was a lot of red and orange to the Whedon cut, but it was made to make the scene seem more brighter.
Yes.
Whereas the red and orange that are used in the Snyder cut are used more as an ambiance, and everything else is still very dark. Very shadow. They make you very much understand the stakes of the movie a lot better.
Everything seems more likely to fail.
Yeah, they don't pull punches with the Snyder cut, and they don't take their time. Well, they do take their time. They do take their time. They don't.
That's why it's a 4-hour movie.
Yeah, that's why it's a 4-hour movie.
But yeah,
they don't spend their time frivolously pushing crappy jokes. They spend more of their time actually, focusing on the characters.
Yeah, character development.
What's going on in the moment.
Yeah, they just focus so much more on what's happening and characters, and it's just 1,000 times better.
It really
don't watch. Just take time. Watch.
If you haven't already, just don't watch the original cut of Justice League. I would actually recommend watching the 4-hour cut of the Snyder Vision than ever watching the 2-hour version of the movie.
Oh yeah, easily.
If you have the choice, make the right choice. Watch the Snyder cut, even if. It's broken up into 6 chapters. If every time it fades to black and says chapter so-and-so, you pause it and you go off and do something else, you're still way better off than watching
the Whedon
version cut of Justice League. It's not only my opinion, but it's the right choice.
It really is. Yeah. I can't even argue for the Whedon version of this movie. It's
terrible.
It's bad.
It's really bad.
It's awful.
If I had to rate the Whedon cut of this movie, it'd be a 1.5. That's the lowest I've ever given a movie.
Yeah, same.
And I've seen some pretty terrible movies.
Yeah, same.
That's the lowest I've ever given a movie on this.
But
channel.
Yeah, exactly. So where all the redeeming qualities that the Whedon cut had, which were very few and far between. This movie brings it 1,000-fold.
Yeah.
There's a snippet where where Cyborg sees into the future, and he sees Darkseid coming to Earth, destroying everything, and there's a shot of him in a bunch of city rubble, and there's Kilowog dead on the ground. And they haven't even mentioned Green Lantern Corps but once in the entire movie.
Yeah.
And there's a main Green Lantern dead on the floor right there.
I can say we can't properly close out this video without talking about the Joker.
Yes, true.
Because that's, I'm just gonna put it out there. That whole segment of the movie was way out of left field.
Oh yeah.
They concluded the story
Yeah, the movie was basically over.
It was literally over. Mm-hmm. It was over.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Like, the story was over. We could have ended the movie right there and saved us 30 minutes.
Well, they could have,
give or take.
They could have stopped the movie right when Deathstroke gets onto Lex Luthor's boat, and right as soon as they say, "Oh, cheers to that," they could have cut right there. Credits done. Great movie.
They added
Perfect.
a whole extra scene of what's literally an alternate timeline, and you see the beginning of this timeline in Batman v Superman, with Batman
in the desert.
In the desert, strung up, and he, like, everything happens. It's literally the same timeline, and you see Barry Allen in the same armor that he uses when he travels back in time to tell Bruce Wayne in the past, like Lois Lane is the key.
Which is also a dream.
Which is also a dream.
In that movie.
So much that goes on.
Mara was there, Deathstroke is helping, Deathstroke is helping them. Cyborg is also there.
But the big thing is that the Joker's there, and it's Jared Leto's Joker, and he's had some tattoo removal surgery.
Oh, thank God.
And, oh man, he was so good.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good.
The back and forth between him and Batman was perfect.
It was so good.
Like, if he had played that Joker...
everything that I wanted out of Joker out of Suicide Squad. So anyway, Jared Leto's Joker was so much better.
So much better.
This variation, it totally takes you out of the movie
a little bit.
So, like, the movie has already resolved. Like, we've already defeated Steppenwolf. We've already concluded that Darkseid is not coming to Earth yet.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Superman's back. Like, happy-go-lucky, we're good to go. And then we get the apocalyptic, future that we see in Batman v Superman, where Batman's being held prisoner, and then, like, Superman's a bad guy, and blah, 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 and then we get this really incredible scene with Ben Affleck's Batman and Jared Leto's Joker, and Jared Leto's Joker is just... I mean, on this one, it is so on point, as far as I can tell. Like, in my opinion, I feel like it was just so well done.
Oh, yeah.
If he had played this character in Suicide Squad, and had also been the main villain in Suicide Squad, and also they'd not made Suicide Squad the way that they did, it would have been great.
Yeah.
He has the chops to be the Joker.
He does.
He really does.
And he showed it in this scene.
In this scene. It was fantastic.
It was. And the fact that Warner Brothers ruined it is
I mean, it's just a glowing sign of what's to come, to be totally honest. Yeah. I mean, hopefully the streams and success of the Snyder Cut shows what the DCU can be.
Yeah,
but I really don't have much hope for Zack Snyder's future in the DCU. I mean, he'll probably make more movies, but I don't know about the continuity of these movies going forward from here. Yeah, true. I mean,
everything in that scene was just so well done. Like, the Jared Leto's Joker was just so great.
Like, perfectly mad, while still maintaining that sensibility that, like, kind of cuts through the madness of the Joker, while still being, like, totally batshit crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, you know he's crazy, and you can tell he's crazy, but then he goes on and starts to make sense, and then his whole line about, you need me to undo this whole madness, just shows, like, they have so much more planned for the DCU, or had planned. This is obviously, like, the Snyder Cut makes you think, like, there's gonna be, like, a much grander scene, but this is Zack Snyder's movie going into the Justice League before the Justice League was actually released, which really, like, Warner Brothers' whole continuity is totally just thrown into the wind at this point.
Yeah.
Which is really sad, because if this had been the movie that came out in theaters, albeit probably wouldn't have been 4 hours.
If they did release it as it is, a lot of people probably wouldn't have seen it because of the long time, the duration.
But I feel like
because of all the positive reviews and stuff, I think people would have sat through it.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been a slow burner, which would have been eventually enough to build.
Yeah, honestly, individual viewer opinion aside, like, I feel like if they had released the Justice League as Zack Snyder had seen it, it probably, not probably, but possibly have gone down as a modern classic.
Possibly.
Like, the cinematography in the Snyder Cut is so spectacular.
It is.
And there is so much more there. I mean, we talked about this while we were watching the movie. While we were watching the first movie, I kept making comments too, like, wow, this really feels like Joel Schumacher Batman.
Yeah.
Like, this is really campy and dumb.
Yeah.
And then
the music in that one made it just look super campy too.
Yeah, the music lended a heavy hand into the campiness, and, like, it directly was influenced by the Tim Burton Batman movies, which, like, dark as they are still campy. Like,
yeah, well, I mean,
it was an early Batman movie. It's kind of supposed to have some camp to it. Like, that's kind of what made comic books what they are.
Yeah.
This movie, like, Zack Snyder went back to his original, composer for his music for, like, the 300, Watchmen.
Yeah. Oh, you could definitely tell.
Oh, yeah. And there were points where just like, oh, wow, this has a really Watchmen-like feel. Oh, man, this scene
the 300.
Really 300.
Yeah, anytime they were showing Aquaman, it pretty much was reminiscent of Watchmen. Mm-hmm. And anytime they showed Wonder Woman, it was very reminiscent of 300.
Yeah. Like, and it's not always a steadfast rule. Like, if you watch a Wonder Woman scene, you might see some, like, or you might hear some remnants of, like, some of the other Snyder films here and there. Like, you could definitely tell it was a Zack Snyder movie, and a lot of the shots were very, like, oh wow, this really reminds me of Watchmen, like. And I loved the Watchmen movie.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely loved it. I know it's very controversial. It's very seen as, like, love or hate. I loved it. And this movie kind of, like, touched on that style here and there, and it really brought that kind of style into it, which I absolutely loved. The way he did the movie, and the music in the movie, and the way he cut the movie was very much more dramatic and very more character-driven, as opposed to superheroes doing superhero things and they beat the bad guy. Congratulations. No, it was very much more of like you see the flaw in these humans as they are.
One of the critics for the Whedon cut put it best. It's like, it feels like a trailer.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like a 2-hour long trailer to a movie.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it was the 2-hour long trailer to the movie that we should have had in the first
freaking place. Yeah.
Granted, it probably wouldn't have been 4 hours long, but, I mean, while it is 4 hours long, like, diehard fans aren't going to feel like it's 4 hours long. diehard fans are going to be all like, wow, this movie felt like an hour and a half movie. And
you're going to be,
diehard
fans are, like, especially, like, big comic book fans are going to be able to pick things out, like, they're like, oh, that leads into, like, future stuff. Like, but even non-diehard fans are still going to be engrossed in the movie.
Absolutely.
Like, it pulls you in, and, like, yeah, it takes you out, like, every once in a while, but, I mean, like, it's, like, for the whole entirety of the movie, you're pretty much in the whole thing.
I feel like the Whedon cut was meant to kind of, in the Avengers way, like, bring everybody into it, whereas the Snyder cut is like, if you know, you know. And it's just like, it is a comic book nerd's wet dream.
Yeah, kind of.
You know, in a lot of ways. Like, they do a lot of payoffs, especially with Darkseid.
Oh, yeah.
With Darkseid, they do a lot of payoff for that character in the Snyder cut. Like, in the original cut of the movie, Steppenwolf is the one who attacks Earth and tries to, terraform it with the mother boxes and blah, blah, blah. And I pointed this out while we were watching the movie, was Wonder Woman goes to a temple and sees a depiction of Darkseid. And I'm all like, why is she seeing Darkseid? Like, Darkseid wasn't even there. Like, why would she be able to see a depiction of him? And then they go to the flashback, and in the original movie it's Steppenwolf, but in
this one,
the Snyder cut, it's actually Darkseid attacking Earth and being defeated by the alliances of Earth, as opposed to Steppenwolf, and it actually makes a significantly higher impact.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, but I think that pretty much covers it. I think we're starting to repeat ourselves at this point.
Yeah, and more or less at this point we're kind of repeating ourselves. You know how it is. If you want us to talk about Justice League more, just let us know in the comments. We will happily make another video talking about this movie, because there's literally so much more we could talk about. We didn't even really get that much into Batman. We didn't get that much into the Flash or Cyborg or Wonder Woman or Superman. Like, we didn't get into the psychology of any of those characters. We just kind of went over story points. So we could totally make another hour-long video about just the character development.
Yeah. So if you want, comment down below. We'll gladly make another video.
Happily.
If you, hopefully you like our videos, so you can see our next one. Our next one's coming out.
You know the YouTube spiel. Hit like. Hit subscribe. If you want to be notified when any of our videos come out, hit the bell. Otherwise, it's twice a week.
Tickle that bell icon. Yes. Starting this week.
Tickle.
Yes. Jingle the bells.
Jingle the bells.
So, yeah, starting this week, we'll be putting out 2 videos a week.
2 videos a week. Our next video is going to be talking about the very first episode of Captain...
It's Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes. Yeah, Captain Falcon. the winter guy thing. The show that I've been excited about since it was announced.
But yeah, so we'll be talking about everything on Sunday.
Hopefully, we're going to shoot it on Sunday. You're going to see it slightly later than that.
It'll most likely be Monday morning. Then I'll post it, because I'm up all the time.
Yeah, we're still figuring out the scheduling thing as we have lives.
We're doing the best we can. Yeah. But anyway, so we'll see you in the next video. Hopefully you like that too, and I think that about wraps it up.
If you got to this point in this video, thank you so much. We're your humble servants, and we will continue to do this incessantly, unless somebody tells us to stop, in which case we'll still do this because we want to.
So yes, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Nicolette.
Our biggest fan. Jason, our biggest critic.
Definitely. And anybody else that made it out, thank you so much. You keep us going.
You keep us wanting to do what we do.
Exactly.
And we're happy about that. In which case,
that wraps it up. So,
Here's to you.
Here's to me.
Friends for life we shall always be.
If by chance we disagree.
Screw you.
Here's to me.
Cheers.
Cheers.